Hello, welcome back. We have argued in previous videos that management information systems, and particularly ERPs, have an implicit business process design that orchestrates how activities are carried out in a company. You might remember that in this course's presentation video, we highlighted that information systems guide and drive most organizations, as exemplified by the fact that if we work in accounting, a financial application will control with an iron fist how we account for transactions. Furthermore, we hinted at how this could sometimes be frustrating by stating these systems closely monitor and control employees. Sometimes they might even drive them crazy, especially if those employees do not really understand the underlying logic. We went on to say that in this course we would try to make sense of these systems, understand their role and how they shape day-to-day business life and my own current or future job. Thus, in this video, having acknowledged that management information systems often closely monitor and control our business life and, quite annoyingly, frequently prevent us from doing our work in the way we would otherwise do it, we will ask ourselves, why? Let us assume, for example, that while negotiating with a customer a significant sale of a given product, we would like to meanwhile earmark or block the corresponding inventory to be able to guarantee the delivery time to our customer. But the system does not allow us to do so. Or that we cannot accept an order from a customer until a proposal has been prepared and formally approved. Whose fault is it? Is the information system incapable of this functionality? Was the implementation and adaptation project deficient and thus these important capabilities were overlooked? Or is it a conscious decision by the management that wants to ensure, via the management information system, that this is precisely the way in which business is carried out? To reflect on that question, we should start by realizing that when a company decides to implement an ERP, there are initially two different competing sets of rules and procedures to carry out the work, or two business process designs in our terminology. How things are presently done, the current or as-is process design, and the process design implicit in the ERP. However, once the ERP is implemented, there can only be one, the to-be design, implemented both in the system and in the actual operation of the company and its employees. This convergence normally takes place in the middle ground, thus both sides given to a certain extent. Let us analyze them in turn. Let us start with the current way of operating or as-is business process design. Almost invariably, the implementation of a major management information system, and particularly of an ERP, leads to significant modifications, often referred to as Business Process Reengineering or BPR. When first faced with this issue, some professionals deem it almost an anathema. How can a computer application, the argument goes, teach my company how to conduct its business? There are, however, several good arguments to embark in a BPR when implementing an ERP. To start with, the current or as-is design might be ineffective or inefficient, not appropriate for the current environment, and self-perpetuating merely through inertia. Quite often, top management seizes the opportunity of a major management information system implementation to bring about a desired change and overcome organizational inertia and resistance to change. The management information system being implemented might also, in itself, enable or make advisable different process designs. For example, a unified ERP might allow a multinational company to draw on the inventory in any country to fulfill a given customer order, an approach that might have been impractical in the previous situation with various uncoordinated systems. The key rationale, though, for the business process reengineering that takes place in most ERP implementations is taking advantage of best practices. The business process design implicit in the major management information systems reflects the generally accepted best approach. Furthermore, major management information system vendors have hundreds of customers providing continuous feedback. Thus, over time, they are able to validate and fine-tune this design. User companies need a compelling reason to deviate from this generally accepted consensus. As we shall discuss in subsequent videos, often the only convincing reason is the existence of a competitive advantage in that differentiated way of operating. And, of course, there is the more down-to-earth argument of avoiding the costs and issues involved in adapting the ERP. Exploring this, however, requires understanding the various approaches a firm can take to adapt the initial implicit model of the management information system, as discussed in the next video. Thus, in this video, we have discussed how a management information system's implicit business process design actually directs the way a company and its employees operate. Therefore, in an ERP implementation, there is a need to agree upon and implement a 2B business process design, resulting from a convergence between the current practice as is and the business process design implicit in the initial off-the-shelf acquired standard information system. Within this two-way convergence, in this video we have discussed the main reasons for adapting the current practice through a BPR, such as unsuitability of the current practice, new approaches enabled by the ERP, desire to benefit from best practices, or avoidance of ERP adaptation costs. In the next video, after posing a few review questions, we shall analyze the other side of the coin. How can the business process design implicit in a management information system be adapted, and the implications of doing so? Thank you. I will see you there.